Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Dirks, and on behalf of ACRL and Choice, I'd like to welcome you to today's program, Making eBooks Functional, Publisher Backing for the Charlotte Initiative, which is sponsored by Springer Nature. Today's discussion is one in a series of sponsored webinars from ACRL and Choice that addresses new ideas, developments, and products of interest to the academic library community. Free to users, these structured 60-minute live presentations provide the opportunity for interactive discussions of important new issues and developments in academic librarianship by librarians, vendors, authors, and other interested stakeholders. Before we get started, I'd like to point out a few features of the webinar software. In the main area of the screen, you can follow along with the presentation materials. Along the left-hand side, you will see a chat panel that you can use to submit questions or comments. We will spend some time responding to your questions during the program, so please feel free to submit those throughout. And finally, please note that today's program will be recorded, and all registrants will receive follow-up instructions on how to access the archived version. Our speakers today are Chuck Hamaker, October Ivins, and Wouter van der Velde. Here to introduce them is Michael DeSanto from Springer Nature Library Marketing.
Thanks, Mark, and again, welcome everyone. We're excited to have Chuck Hamaker, Special Projects Librarian at the University of North Carolina's J. Murray Atkins Library, and October Ivins, Principal and Consultant at Ivins eContent Solutions, here with us today to provide an overview of the Charlotte Initiative, a 2-year Mellon Foundation-funded project that aims to explore ways to improve access and usability of ebooks. The initiative proposes 3 principles which will be discussed during the webinar: perpetual access to content, allowing unlimited simultaneous users, and removal of digital rights management. Additional insights will be provided on the current ebook landscape and the overall benefits of the Charlotte Initiative for academic institutions. Presenting with Chuck in October today is Wouter van der Velde, Senior eProduct Manager for eBooks at Springer Nature. Wouter will discuss how Springer Nature, the world's largest ebook publisher, supports the principles outlined in the Charlotte Initiative, and what the publisher is doing to further enhance permissions, content, and functionality to meet the demands of today's changing educational environment. At this point, we're ready to get started. Over to you, Chuck.
Thank you. The UNC Charlotte, there we go, in 2013 did something rather unusual. We deleted from our catalog 24,000 ebooks. These were limited use titles. We'd had them for about 12 years. People complained when they checked a book out on a library computer and lost access for weeks because we wipe our PCs at night. Complained that someone else had the title or all copies were checked out. Complained about checkout periods and disappearing titles. Complained, although they didn't know what it was about, the DRM. Even the librarians couldn't understand or explain the use limitations of these particular titles. And faculty wrote and told us they would tell students not to use these books. When we take the screen, got the outline there, and we need to go forward. This is a real email from a faculty member regarding these books. In June of 2013, the university provided one-time funds sufficient to buy all Project Muse ebooks available, representing a very different model of use. This created a wake-up call for UNC Charlotte on a number of levels. We realized we could get ebooks without restrictions. In the first of the week of the fall semester, however, a student came up to the reference desk with a complaint about one of those books. He couldn't download it, and it was a title assigned for a course he was taking. That was a bit of a shock. First, that it didn't work, and second, we didn't buy titles assigned as textbooks, did we? Well, we found out that we had. I contacted Muse, and they fixed the first problem by the end of the day. But what about our assigned textbook policy of not purchasing them? We learned rather quickly there were 35 titles in the collections we purchased that year that were being used as texts for classes. Ultimately, there were 2 responses by the librarians at UNC Charlotte. All librarians agreed to delete all of the limited use titles, those 24,000 titles that I mentioned earlier, and decided to acquire rights for classroom support if they met 3 criteria we derived from our experience with various vendor models. Here are the guiding principles that were mentioned in the introduction. Unlimited simultaneous users, freedom from any digital rights management, any DRM, including but not limited to use of proprietary formats, restricted access to content, or time-limited access terms. And finally, as important as the other 2, irrevocable perpetual access and archival rights. Later that year, we added a number of other presses and publishers, notably Springer, and went live in January of 2014, Oxford, Wiley, Elsevier, and various others, Taylor and Francis. And we currently have, from all of the books that we've purchased, about 265,000 chapter downloads a year. The next semester, after that first, where we discovered we had 35 titles, we were able to acquire 55 titles that met these requirements and met classroom needs. At the beginning of the spring semester of 2015, we had identified about 250 titles for use in the spring semester, and over 4,000 students have at least one free eBook to use for a class this past semester. The bookstore provides us their list of class-assigned titles. Each semester we go through it, identify titles that meet the principles from various sources. And we also block textbook ordering via Interlibrary loan based on their list. Our Center for Teaching and Learning has also supported the titles with links and notices. As a result of a meeting, actually, we created a database of all of the titles that are available to our faculty, and that URL is the link to that database. The first semester in 2014, we had a faculty member who surprised us. He wrote for his class syllabi, all of the books that we want for this class are available free as eBooks via the library's website. I have not placed orders with the bookstore. He also didn't notify the library. We learned about it from a student taking a course. So we learned a couple of things. Number one, faculty were enthusiastic about these books in a way they had never been with the 24,000 limited use titles. We learned, as we looked around, that we were not alone. And as a result of the meeting in 2014 with Don Waters, the Senior Program Officer for Scholarly Communications for the Mellon Foundation, the library was invited to apply for a grant to bring like-minded institutions together for discussion on the impact of eBooks in the institutional setting, to see, in fact, how eBooks worked out throughout institutions. We learned we weren't alone, that UCLA had an eBook value statement, and I put part of it up on the slide, and additional areas, particularly about scholarly communication. The link back there will give you the whole policy. I've just subsumed a small amount of it. Macalester College, a private liberal arts college, also developed an eBooks rights advocacy page. And I've just excerpted a single statement from them. And their concern about eBook restrictions. This is a timeline of the Charlotte Initiative project. After Don met us in August of 2014, we put a project team together, wrote the grant proposal. In May of 2015, the grant was announced. And we've had a meeting of a working group of about 20 individuals, as well as some research teams liked. There were 13 libraries that were part of this like-minded collaboration. 4 library consortia, 3 university presses, Project Muse, a variety of size and types of libraries. Our discussions for this group are conducted under Chatham House rules, that is, without attribution. These are members of the working group from libraries. We also have the consortia and a group of small university, not small presses, a small group of university presses, along with Project Muse. We broke it up, the work of the initiative broken up into 4 different research teams, and the research teams are user experience, course use, listed here on the slide. I'm going to talk very briefly about, this is our internal team. We have a couple of graduate assistants, or research assistants. And I made a mistake on the slide. Liz Seiler is actually our collection development librarian. That's a new responsibility for her. The user experience research team, this is their charge. What they found in reviewing the literature is that, in fact, there are areas where more study is needed, and they're preparing to create a template for an assessment toolkit for user experience. Some of the questions they've been looking at are listed here. How do libraries evaluate user satisfaction? How does research affect policy and practice? Is this kind of a assessment happening more privately? If so, how do we investigate the current state of practice? The course use research team charges to examine the issues around library-provided course materials and brainstorm ideas on how libraries and publishers can work together to provide access to course materials that fall within the 3 principles at little to no cost to students. Eventually, there'll be a white paper summarizing ideas that are born out of our discussions. In addition, at the culmination of the grant, this is true for all 4 of the research teams, there will be a free conference in Charlotte where we can present our ideas to attendees. The research team includes both publishers and large and small institutions. Some of the findings from the discussion of the research team are here on this slide. And that discovery continues. October, I think it's your turn.
Thanks, Chuck. It was nice hearing that great overview. And it does seem like we've been doing this forever, but we're actually only halfway through the grant. We have another year to go. I want to take a minute to thank Choice Reviews and our colleagues at Springer for giving us this opportunity. We're really trying to do this project for the community, for and with the community, and to get the sort of maximum participation and support from libraries, publishers, and vendors. So it's really terrific to be able to do this. Chuck has covered the overview and 2 of the 4 research teams. I'm going to talk about the remaining 2 teams and the environmental scan. So our 3rd research team is on licensing principles. And we all recognize that this is really sort of core to being able to implement the principles. That we have to have agreement and be able to reflect that agreement in our licenses. This is the biggest group, and we're really fortunate to have both a university press director and an academic library director as our co-leaders. one of their subgroups is doing a literature review, and a literature review on some, that includes licensing, but it has some other topics, is part of the environmental scan. So I've been able to share citations from the environmental scan with them, but we're also fortunate to have 2 members of ARL's intellectual property group, and we ask them to send us case law, white papers, things that are not going to show up in the literature that we've searched. And they've sent us about 30 items. So that's been terrific. And at some point, we'll be sharing this bibliography more widely so other people can benefit from it. The second group is actually looking at licenses. We are aware that there are a lot of model licenses out there, but we're trying to do something more granular and more specific. So, it seems to us that to implement a model license, you sort of get warring licenses. The publisher sends you one, the library has one, and you have to go through item by item and try and compare. So what we're trying to do is come up with recommended language and negotiation points that specifically support our principles, and turn those over to people in the hopes that they'll be incorporated or that you'll have that as part of your license checklist. Okay, one of the interesting things about research is you don't always end up where you planned, because it's research, it's dynamic, you learn things. So one of the nice things that came out of our September working group meeting was a respectful but lively discussion about whether or not interlibrary loan of print books has an impact on sales for university press books. So we sort of went round and round with that and decided that if there was a way we could actually collect and share data and maybe resolve the question or at least advance it. So our library members agreed to collect their interlibrary loan statistics and share them with the publishers. So it's a good idea, but it has not been very straightforward to implement. Some of the challenges are here on the slide. It's pretty messy to try and do a search and mark records by publisher name. And if you do a keyword search with university and press, you're going to miss MIT Press. You're going to get other things. There's not a lot of authority control in the publisher field. So then we thought, well, maybe we can get ISBN stems. Well, it was an education for me to understand that even some pretty small publishers have multiple ISBN stems. And AAUP, the University Press Association, doesn't have a list, doesn't maintain one. So we're exploring some ways of finding that. Meanwhile, we've developed, or I say we, it's actually Beth Martin at UNC Charlotte, has developed a really nice procedure for MySQL, which we've adapted for Microsoft Access for people who want to collect their statistics to be able to analyze it. But we're waiting to get the data, so stay tuned. We may ask for help for this. This may have to be a follow-on project. Okay, and that brings us to the Platforms and Preservation Research Team. This is another team that was not part of the original grant. It came out of a discussion at our September working group where people pointed out to the project team that having the rights for content was well and good enough, but we actually have to know what we're going to do with it because we need more than rights. We need something more specific. So this team, chaired by Kate Davis from a consortium that actually hosts eBooks for the whole consortium, and an academic library director, has a smaller team, but these are all people with systems expertise in libraries or in consortia. and they're going to be identifying alternatives and basically coming up with language to be able to get what we need. They got a later start because they didn't start until after September, but they are making good progress. And finally, the environmental scan. The environmental scan was always considered as a key part of the project and is supposed to be my main job. So I've been working on it. We have an extensive literature review which is focused on the three things you see here. And initially I was supposed to be doing it by myself, but I'm not one to decline assistance when it's offered. And our terrific research assistant, Kelly Denzer, has really done some terrific work on this. And Rachel Fleming sat in for her library dean at the working group meeting and made such good contributions. When she offered to help out, I was happy to have her help too. So we have the publisher survey developed. It's in the pre-testing stages. That will go out next, or go out pretty soon. I hope before June 2nd, when I have to give a talk about it. And we will be talking to vendors, but we're starting with publishers. And within that, we're starting with nonprofits and then moving on to commercial. So here are some other things the environmental scan is looking at. We want to share this widely, and we have designed this to be iterative, which means this isn't the kind of research where we do a one-time snapshot and then walk away from it. We want to go back to publishers as many times as it takes to get them to respond, to find out what ideas they have for improving the chances that they'll be able to comply with the principles, find out what new ideas they have, and ultimately we want to get everybody we contact to agree to support the principles. So that's the goal. So we are halfway through. This is the same URL Chuck gave you at the beginning. And in addition to our free public conference, we'll be making all of our white papers available. I look forward to to answering your questions after Wouter presents, and I've had a sneak preview at his slides, so you're in for a treat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Like I said in the introduction, I'm probably the one who's calling from the furthest across the pond. I'm product manager for eBooks at Springer Nature, and I will show you a bit of the Springer eBook offering and how we comply with many of the results already in this study. First of all, on our platform, we have over 200,000 ebooks. So how did we get there? What I'm going to show in the next couple of minutes is what happened back in 2006 when we started and how we developed and what are the latest developments on the platform in the name of editions. So back in 2006, one of the things that happened was that in the Human Genome Project, the last chromosome was published, and coincidentally that was in Nature, not knowing that Springer and Nature would come together fairly recently. But also, Springer launched its ebook collections, and before that, actually, we were even considering not continuing a book program because in print it's very hard to sell. However, we decided at that time to digitize all our books starting 2005. And actually, at the end of 2006, we won an award at the then London Online Conference. Ever since then, things developed. We improved our metadata. We host nowadays metadata advisory boards to speak with catalogers all over the world and see what we can improve even further. Also, we've partnered with OCLC. We noticed that particularly in the US, but also in many other parts of the world, people are using OCLC WorldCat at the time of World Share now as their main resource. And we partnered with OCLC by making sure that everyone that purchases eBooks with us gets these records at no extra cost. We cover the cost for that. Also, that we increased our book output. And like I said in the beginning, even before we started this, we considered not going through with book publishing, but once we saw that they were heavily used and a big success, we made sure that we could even create more value for money by adding more smaller publishers where we would do the distribution for, as well as acquiring more content in niche areas or in hot research areas. We added new subject collections. And for instance, the last added subject collection a couple of years ago was energy. We discovered that we were publishing a lot of content in that area, and we could justify a separate collection for that. And by doing that, serving even more research librarians. And finally, we built a new platform. And for those who can still remember the orange Springer link, that was way in the past. We developed a new platform from scratch, which turned out to be the fastest in the industry. And this is a picture of our CEO, Dirk Hank. After a few years, we got asked also, when are you going to add the archives? So that's what we did. We also added our archives, adding another 110,000 books to our book portfolio. So these are books that are from the 1800s to 2004. As of 2005, we started with our contemporary book program. And we made subject collections in both English and German. All titles were digitized to high standards. So even titles where we would have only stained and books that had coffee stains in them, those were all digitally cleaned, as well as OCR'd, optical character recognition, for the most efficient indexation and findability. And this is not something that we just made up ourselves. Our advisory boards help us. We have a couple of advisory boards. These are just two examples. On the left side, you see one of our library advisory boards that came together in Turkey a couple of years ago, as well as on the right side, our metadata advisory board. And they add questions. We were planning on doing eBooks, and we got questions like, the far most asked question was, please do not add digital rights management. It's a pain. Also, it should be affordable. And even already when we announced that we would go for ebook collections, we got asked for the archives. And finally, also questions came up like, oh, we use your ebooks now, but our users are printing much of the content. So what can you do about that? And from the metadata side, I already mentioned this. People were asking for OCLC mark records. They were asking for more enhanced tags in the records itself. And these were developments that we have done in the last years to create more enhanced records. I'll go into that a bit deeper. But first of all, when we decided to go for ebooks, we decided we should not make any distinction. All of our books should be included. So including our monographs, our textbooks, the book series, our major reference works, which sometimes could be individually up to a couple of $1,000s each, our handbooks, edited volumes, conference proceedings, and one of the latest types of books is our Springer Briefs. And best of all, we all made them DRM-free. There are no restrictions in number of concurrent users, no restrictions in copy and paste, printing, downloading, and saving to your device. An initiative that we started recently is our Affordable Textbook Revolution, where we give as a service libraries that have our textbooks to give a list of them and to show exactly what kind of textbooks there are available to these libraries. And what about interlibrary loan? This is a long piece of text. It's an excerpt from our license, and I highlighted here a part that shows that we allow interlibrary loan on eBooks. We don't allow to send the entire ebook electronically because there's a difference with a print where it's available or non-available as soon as the book transfers from one library to the other. But we allow parts of it that are being requested by other libraries. And also, our lack of DRM, and it's also included in our license, we allow inclusion of our books, including our textbooks, in course packs. The pricing model that we have designed was also based on the feedback that we got from the library advisory boards. And probably some of you are attending these sessions, this session right now, that have served in one of our library advisory boards. But apart from no DRM, the other most requested feature was to come to a pricing model that was not only affordable to the size of each institution, but also that would not allow in recurring costs for the same collection. So we have annual ebook collections, subject specific, and once you buy them, you own them. So it's very similar to how print books are offered. If you order a print book for your library, you can shelf it and it's there forever. A publisher or a vendor will not get back to you to charge again for the same title. And you can decide whether you want to go for the next year's collection or not. But everything that you purchased is still yours. Also, all our books are born as ebooks. We turned around our production model, where we weren't starting, as in the past, with a print book and a print file that in some cases would become an ebook. No, we are creating ebooks. And of those ebooks, we can create print books if they are requested. And right now, about 10% of all visits to Springer Link come from mobile devices. And you may say that's not a whole lot, but considering that the site gets about 2 million visits every day, that's still a lot of usage from mobile devices. And the picture you see here is that I took in China at the Tiananmen Square, where you can see that everyone has a mobile device that actually allows you to read online, although they're all taking pictures. However, in order to serve the smaller screen devices, we have now included EPUB files for the majority, especially our most recent content, wherever we can create an EPUB file. An EPUB file is a file of the same book that where you can resize the font and so make it readable on a smaller screen device. But also our platform is mobile optimized. So there's not a separate mobile website, but if someone goes to Springer Link with an iPhone or an Android phone, the site recognizes the screen size the user is using and will serve the site in the best possible way. And as you can see in the screenshots that are appearing on your screen right now, parts of the screen are disappearing and are relocated at other parts, so you can easily scroll to the information that you need. So with the addition of EPUB files of the actual titles, the site and the platform is fully mobile friendly. And like I said, one of the, or many times we got also asked in our library advisory boards, yes, our users love your ebooks, and we can see that in the usage. However, they are printing a lot of this content as well. and this is generating a lot of load on our university printers. So we developed also MyCopy. And MyCopy is actually a softcover edition of the ebooks that we have, and we digitally print them. So it's the same quality as our normal softcover editions. And they are priced at only $24.99 US, including shipping and handling. And that is across all books that we can digitally print, which is the vast majority of all titles that are available. So this includes all textbooks as well. The only difference with the normal softcover edition is that the MyCopy version will have a color outside, a color cover, but the inner work is printed in black and white. However, the user will always have the PDFs or the EPUB files with the high-resolution color images available on the platform, which he can even download to his device. But there's more. Something that we launched last year is Bookmetrics. And Bookmetrics is actually showing a lot of metrics on the performance of each title. We work together with Altmetric to populate all the metrics that are showing for each title. And what you see here is the book homepage. So even if you are looking at unlicensed content, you can still see the book metrics showing up. And what you see on the right side of the screen, right below the cover, a couple of metrics that include the number of citations to this book, the number of mentions on social media like Twitter, Facebook, the number of readers in Mendeley, people that have shelved this book in Mendeley, the number of reviews available, and finally the number of downloads on Springer Link. And this will help a student or a researcher to evaluate the impact of each title that is available. And as soon as you click through on that little box, you get brought to the Bookmetrics website, where you see even the performance and other metrics of each chapter in the book. The latest addition when it comes to ebooks, which I am very proud of, is one of the first results of the Springer and Nature merger, which is the addition of the Palgrave Connect content to Springer Link. So this includes a lot of content in the business and economics, as well as the humanities and social sciences content. And when we first started evaluating the content, we looked at all this and we thought of mixing it all together, which could come to a gray screen. There's nothing wrong with your computer connection right now. This is supposed to be gray. And we managed to divide the addition of these new titles as well as existing titles that Springer publishes in humanities and social sciences in 10 new ebook collections starting 2016 on Springer Link. And let me emphasize, before I talk about what's actually on this slide, we keep our collections as they are. And as I started off, the way we sell our ebooks is on a continuous access model. So if you purchased anything from our 2015 collections, they will remain as they are. So in 2016, we added 10 new collections, which you can see on the left-hand side. And these are mostly populated by the Palgrave addition to the platform. The Palgrave edition of titles allowed us to basically tailor the collections and the content that we have in the humanities, social sciences, as well as in business and economics, much more towards faculty. And we created 10 new collections out of the edition. On the right-hand side, you see the STM collections, and those have always been available on Springer Link. And by that, I would like to thank you for your attention. Also, I would like to thank our hosts for letting us speak. And I think it's now time for some questions.
All right, great. Thanks, Chuck, October, and Wouter for sharing your insights on the topic of ebook functionality. Now we'll move into the Q&A portion of the webinar. I see that Chuck and October have been actively fielding and answering questions here. So if there are any additional questions, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Let's see what we have up here. The question, how can ebooks with multi-user licenses be tagged or identified in library catalogs so faculty know which are multi-user and so are good for textbook use in classes? Is there a way to expose the license types restrictions in the MARC record? Not sure if that was answered already.
There is a way.
Have any insight?
Chuck, this is Chuck. There is a way to mark it to put it in the MARC record. I'm not a cataloging expert. I see someone has suggested that a library is using an 856 field to include that information in the library record. So libraries are exposing license information in terms of number of users in MARC records. So the answer is yes, it's being done. I'm not the expert.
All right, great. We have a question for Wouter regarding Springer eBooks. Are Springer eBooks exclusively available in subject collections and not available for individual selection into a custom collection? We had a couple of questions along those lines.
Yes, on Springer Link, we sell our books in collections solely. Also, a subset of our titles, so not all of them are available through third-party vendors, where they could be purchased title by title. However, then you are faced with DRM restrictions or a limited number of seats that can access these titles. However, don't be too afraid of looking at larger collections. Actually, the latest edition from Palgrave allowed us to tailor much more towards smaller faculties and departments, and our licensing model and our pricing model is also tailored towards the size and the research intensity of each institution. So the price could be quite affordable in a collection, even if you're coming from a smaller sized institution.
Okay, and a question regarding My Copy. Will the Palgrave books have the My Copy feature as well?
Yes. Also, the Palgrave books will have the My Copy inclusion. And something that I didn't specifically mention in my presentation, we'll also add the Palgrave archives. So this includes books that have never been available electronically before, and also those will have the My Copy feature.
All right, we have a question regarding the chances of other big publishers changing to no DRM. Any speculation? I think Chuck is answering that via text. I'm not sure if he wants to discuss that.
Sure. What we're finding is that a number of publishers and even aggregators actually have no DRM or a very limited DRM. We've found that we're not seeing DRM on 5 major publishers right now. Is that a trend or not? I don't know. For academic libraries, it's much more of a trend than it would be for public libraries, for instance. But there are several major publishers that do the same thing that Springer is doing, is not putting DRM on their titles. And that's what that's what we're buying, in fact. The only thing right now we're buying is non-DRM'd titles. You can see those titles in that link I sent for our textbook database.
Okay, great. And Chuck, another question regarding, have you communicated with faculty your eBook principles, and how have they reacted?
Yes, we have been. I think the closest I can come is to say they're ecstatic, because they saw what the eBooks were before, when we had extremely limited use, limited copies, DRM, all sorts of things. And they've just simply gone, well, they don't even tell us anymore when they use the books. We try to put out a list every semester of which books are being used as textbooks from our eBook collections. And we know by noticing where the heavy use is that there's a significant portion of titles assigned as textbooks that nobody knows about except the students and the faculty. And that's fine. And we're very happy at that. That's part of the reason we're doing this way.
And let's see if we have any other questions coming in. A question regarding usage statistics showing that students are more often using eBook as if they were journals, looking at the individual chapters instead of reading the book from beginning to end. Does your research support this observation?
That's really a great question. And our user experience research team is, my guess, going to be looking at that. One of the things they're discovering is that the different disciplines have very different ways of looking at things, and even citations, for example, in a humanities or history or literature title are quite different than citations in STEM titles. So we assume also the use of those books is going to be differentiated. And we're hoping that we learn some of that as we get out and actually start doing some surveys in the field. I don't have an answer now, but my instinct from what we're hearing from publishers is that the literatures are very different and used very differently. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't have chapter use analogous to journal article use. It's a great question. I hope we're going to have some hard answers for it.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing. I'm apart from talking to academic libraries, I'm also in conversation with corporate libraries, and recently we hosted a corporate library advisory board with librarians from large corporations, and the trend there was that their researchers are making no distinction between book chapters and journal articles. So it's there are different trends going on, not even between disciplines as well as in different research areas.
Interesting.
Okay. With the Charlotte initiative, is there any thought on requiring eBook providers to provide usage statistics?
That's sort of a given. I mean, we rely very heavily on counter statistics, so I don't think we've made it a requirement anywhere, but we expect it from the types of resources that we see people using. I don't know any aggregator for academic libraries that isn't providing some usage statistics. Sometimes they're in formats that are difficult to compare with others.
All right, and a question regarding users still, do users still have to authenticate to get access even though there is no DRM?
Yes, absolutely. They have to authenticate some way.
I can say for Springer Link, and I know also from other academic publishers on their platform, there's an IP authentication. So whenever the researcher or the student is within university premises on their IP range, then they're automatically authenticated. And on Springer Link, there's also this feature whenever a user creates a username and password on Springer Link within the university premises, they can carry the same access rights even if they go outside. So when they're traveling or if they're even commuting. And this can all be administrated by the library admin.
All right. And with regards to the reliability of those statistics, we have a couple of questions asking how reliable the usage statistics are.
Sometimes they're not comparable. That is, Taylor and Francis, for instance, as a contrast with Springer right now, only provides the number, the download. They don't do chapter downloads, so you get a full book download anytime you download a title from Taylor and Francis. Springer takes the opposite approach, which is if you download a book, you get every one of the chapters, and each chapter is counted as a download. So there are issues with comparability, and then there are aggregators and providers that don't use counter numbers at all, that use different measures. So it's not all easy to put in a computer and crunch the numbers. It takes understanding.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for instance, also, if you look at the counter definition of a chapter download, which could also be a section, and I know that some vendors, they create a section of, for instance, every 10 pages.
Right.
So it always look at how a section, how it's been defined to be able to compare apples to apples. I agree with that.
All right. And a couple of questions for Wouter regarding when will book metrics be available? I understand it's already currently available. Do you need to subscribe to it?
No. So if you go to link.springer.com and you find the book homepage, there will always be at least one book metric available for every title. And even if you have not licensed the package where a particular book is in, you will always be able to see the book metrics box on the right side. In my presentation, I showed an open access book, since that has got all of these fields populated, but at least it will always show the usage.
All right, and a couple of questions regarding Springer support of Occam's Reader. Does Springer still currently support Occam's Reader?
This was a pilot that we jumped in on, I think 2 years ago. There's an evaluation going on. However, I must admit that the merger between Springer and Nature has put that a little bit on the back burner, but we're still participating in that.
Let's see if we have time for a couple more. There's a question: which are the 5 academic publishers with no DRM? And I believe Chuck was in the process of answering that one as well via text. Maybe he would like to just to answer that.
Sure, Annette has answered part of the question herself, but you'd also have to include Cambridge, Wiley, and Elsevier. That just off the top of my head, and there may be others that I'm not familiar with. I think so. There are at least those three more, and there are probably more. I hope we're going to find out. That's part of the environmental scan. Questions?
And for Springer Nature, what service is Springer Nature using to digitize their archive titles?
If we have a hard copy, they are scanned, and as I briefly touched upon already, and they are scanned and then digitally cleaned. So to avoid that, any stains on, as you sometimes can imagine, on books that have been sitting in libraries and student dorms are quite dirty, and not to interfere the OCR process, they are digitally cleaned, and this means that actually people are looking at each page and getting that out before the text itself is scanned, so it can be full text indexable. And actually, to add to that, the resolution of scanning is to print quality, so we can reprint each title. To give you, I think I have a little bit more time, but I can quickly say this, a nice anecdote where I got sent a book that one of the libraries in Europe wanted to have to donate for the Springer Book Archive project. It was falling apart, but I sent this off for scanning, and literally it was falling apart, full of stains and dirty stuff. I got back a newly printed softcover version of it, and it looked like it was completely newly typeset.
All right, it looks like we're ready to wrap things up. I wanted to thank you all for those great questions, and we certainly hope you learn more about the current ebook landscape, steps being taken to improve the functionality of ebooks through the Charlotte Initiative, and how Springer Nature is working to further expand ebook usability to meet the needs of today's changing educational environment. I'll turn it back over to Mark now.
Great. I would like to thank our presenters and give them all a virtual round of applause for spending some time with us today and sharing some great information. We greatly appreciate your insight. As a reminder for participants, we've recorded today's program, so be on the lookout for a follow-up email from ACRL and Choice that will include instructions on how to access the archived version. Thanks again to all of our participants for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope the rest of your afternoon is great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.